What's going on, people waiting? We have Levi Bond from All New Nerds. Jasmine, Ahsoka Tano fan, is going to come. We're going to talk some Bad Batch, and we're going to talk about What If, because we did not have a reaction this week. We missed it. We'll see you guys soon. Hang in there. Okay, guys, we're going live.
Woo! Hey, Jess.
Here we are. What's going on, guys?
Oh, just as Jenny sits down.
Hopefully we can get some confirmation in the chat as usual. Let us know you can hear us. Otherwise, we're gonna go on for 10 minutes and then we're gonna be
Won't record it.
talking to nobody. Yes, I know, and I have a history this week of not recording.
You know what? It's good it happened once on like a fairly low impact, like a fairly do away with a bull thing, and then like we'll be so terrified that we'll never do it again. So.
All right. Okay, so I think they can hear us. Lavelle says he can't hear, but I think he's just pulling my chain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, what happened? Jasmine's coming back?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Right.
There we go.
I'll get to go.
So wait, everybody's got
Right.
green screen today. This is awesome.
Yeah,
We are all in our virtual Zoom environments, our COVID environments. I should probably update my background, huh? I've been Millennium Falcon.
I mean,
the
it works.
entire
It's
stretch.
relevant to the channel, you know.
Yeah, it's true. This is
Complaining.
Jedi Jive. I know we've ventured into Marvel a lot with you, Jenny, but
Yeah,
it's
exactly. The
don't
Millennium
know.
Falcon is a timeless classic.
it's
it is.
Agreed.
You know what? Maybe I will just stick with it. I'm no Han Solo though. But yeah, in the name of not recording, oof, we made it. We botched it this week.
boss job.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
already. Yeah, I
So
know.
sad.
It's It's not entirely sad because fortunately we can talk about it right now. Actually,
Yeah.
Jasmine, I'm glad you're here because I wanted to ask. Like, I was wondering. I was like, wait, what's Jasmine gonna do now? You're not doing What If, are you?
You know what? I'm not sure yet. I actually haven't seen the first episode as of yet.
Ah,
It's fine. If you guys want to talk about it still, like, I don't mind. But I might possibly do it. We'll see. There's just kind of been a lot going on lately.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll take a small break or not, but yeah, come next Wednesday, we'll see.
Yeah, I think we all need a break. We can all use a break. The grind is
Mhm.
never ending. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the unfortunate part of it is when we like it's already a pain in the butt. Some people stay up until, 3 a.m., but we're getting a little bit of sleep and then waking up. Jenny, you
Yeah.
even you were texting me from your car, locked
I
outside my
was
house.
because Mike unfortunately we were doomed from the start this week.
Yeah,
Mike
it was just
unfortunately
it was
forgot
bad.
to leave his door open for me, so I was sitting in the car texting him, and then his alarm didn't make noise, and then we were having audio troubles, and we managed to actually record 3 or 4 test runs because we were having audio troubles, and then once we solved that, I guess
that's brutal. All the test runs
yeah,
covered.
it was just one thing after another, and then we forgot to record. And you know what? It's okay because shit happens, and we're going to talk about it all with you guys today.
I just
so
screwed
it's
the
fine.
pooch so hard this week. Anyway, fortunately, Jenny's a good sport about it. She wasn't like, you asshole. And hopefully you'll be back this week, Jenny. I promise I'll hit record this
There
time.
we go. Yeah, it'll never happen again.
But you know, it's I think we actually had like a pretty good reaction too. We were like, I think the episode itself isn't necessarily like, we didn't react crazy that much to the episode itself so much as just had an interesting conversation about Marvel afterwards. And
about Marvel, and also I was interested to hear, and I hope you will share again some of your thoughts about like the animation techniques.
Yeah,
because this is something Mike's an expert in. It's his field. He's an animator, and
you know
I don't really know anything. And I found that kind
Can't
of
wait to talk about the
interesting.
finale.
Yeah, this
extras
actually ties into Bad Batch a little bit, because I was mentioning in my reaction to Bad Batch how like the
the
animation
water physics just
has
like,
been elevated, right? And it's so gorgeous to look at. And I mentioned in my reaction how like even like Resistance, everybody will agree is like the worst. It's at the bottom of the rankings of Star Wars animations. But the animation itself had cool like cartoony aspects to it that were interesting to look at. So that aspect of the Bad Batch has really elevated it, I feel like.
Wait, so you're actually an animator?
Well, I was a character animator. I haven't done it in a while, but I do have a background in animation. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, my opinion means something in that regard.
The rest of the
I'm
time
a
he's
bit of a
just talking
connoisseur.
shit, but
Yeah.
you know, for animation we can listen. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm usually like pointing out how the earlier seasons of the Clone Wars, it was very robotic animation, very simple, like, and there's multiple people, a lot of people who don't really know how animation is put together. There's like the people that animate the textures of the wall in the room that they're in. That's like a whole artist on his own. His job is just like creating the texture, you know what I mean? And then the person that actually builds the model of the character, that's another job right there. And then there's somebody that's a rigger that actually puts like the bones and joints inside of the model so that the model can move around. That's a whole nother job right there. So
clip into itself.
Yeah,
I remember that, like, even as someone with absolutely like no background in this, I used to do language services for Warner Brothers Television, and I ended up working on a lot of cartoons. And when I would be transcribing the credits, I would be like, these credits are longer than any sort of blockbuster Michael Bay movie I've ever seen. How many people worked on this like 15-minute cartoon? And it's a lot. There would be like 16 different departments just for, you know, whatever, Foley animators or something. And I was always amazed like how many jobs went into making like one small bit of art.
Here's a good question. Is Michael Bay's only good movie The Rock?
I can't
Wait,
answer that off the
that's
top
a good
of my
movie?
head.
I think
Who
it might
decided
be.
that was a good movie?
I was like, is that a good movie?
Well, I can't. Well, it's like the best one. All of the other ones are.
He did Transformers, didn't he? He did Transformers?
Yeah.
but
He's famous for like over the top visuals that are more distracting than they are enjoying.
Yeah, that's
to
my
watch.
sort of go-to name to drop when I'm talking about like a big blockbuster special effects heavy, you know. But yeah, my point just being that like a lot of fucking people work on even a small brief bit of animation, and I was always really impressed by like how
Speaking
much
of that,
labor goes into it.
For What If, Mike, did you notice like some of the clipping, like especially with like the tentacles at the end? There was some definitely like, I noticed at least like the model was hitting
some of
itself.
that has to. Well, I mean, I was mentioning Resistance. Resistance has sort of a cell style, which is almost like a number fill type of like, oh, like you outline a space and then you literally use a paint bucket to like fill that space with color, and it's like one color essentially. So paint by numbers, that's the term I was looking for. So there's not
like
as much
behind.
gradient and, you know, highlights and
There
things.
goes Bart Simpson.
Yeah. But, you know, that is actually more of a traditional cartoon look, is that like black outlines with the, you know, you fill in the space with a solid color. It seems like a basic style, but
Also in this case, it harkens back to comics because you have like, you know, the colorist and the inker.
Yeah, we did mention actually about What
in,
If.
like a traditional comic book, and this is, you know, an upgrade or like a evolutionary step for what started out as a book.
Yeah, some of the frames were just beautiful. Like, there was like when she is busting into Castle Hyzer at the end. Like,
and kicking and punching. Yeah.
It's like a panel from a comic book, but
exactly.
Mike had also pointed out that there were images of like, I think you were saying like cellular animation, and I was likening it to in a live action shot, for instance, like the 3-point the 3-point landing,
Oh,
the
yeah,
superhero landing, which
yeah.
serves no like physical function whatsoever. It just looks cool to the point where like in Black Widow, Florence Pugh is making fun of it or whatever, but it's something that like is a good moment. It's a good visual moment on screen. And I was saying what's interesting is that in a live action movie, you get special effects, right? You have like a live actor who's obviously not really exploding, but so either through a practical effect and some trickery or through CGI after the fact, you add the explosion, you make it look like someone gets blown to bits, whatever. And the thing about animation is that the whole thing, by definition, is a special effect. Like animation in its very nature is a special effect. And if you draw the explosion and draw the person, there's no like differentiation. It's all the same sort of process. And so I thought that what you were, I was actually fascinated to hear you saying, oh, there are these weird cellular animation moments that they're setting out. I was like, that's kind of a way of adding a special effect to something that is already a special effect of like making moments stand out and pop off the screen.
Well,
so
Levi was mentioning the like clipping or the like where it looks like two like solid objects are like going through each other, and I was like, a lot of that was actually the result of the like, well, if those two solid objects are painted the same color, you know, and they're just basically painted by numbers, then they do kind of like intersect visually in a two-dimensional way. But it's all just part of the style. And I enjoyed it. And I agree though that like those freeze frame, those comic frames where it's like right out of a comic book. Yeah,
I love that.
Honestly, I think the weakness of the What If for me was the voice acting. The voice.
You think so? I actually didn't really even stop to think about it. I thought that the guy that was
like,
Steve Rogers was.
Yeah,
he was fine, but like
Chris, and they didn't get Hugo Weaving, but like everybody else was
like,
basically
the original, like the live action cast for the voice acting.
But like Sebastian Stan clearly had not done.
He phoned it in. He definitely
voice work. I was like, and then like,
it didn't even sound like him.
And it's so weird that it's Toby Jones as Zola and Stanley Tucci in like one line. Like, why did you get them?
Yeah,
like,
why did
you could have gotten someone professional,
actors.
like in terms of voice work to do it. Like, so sometimes it feels a little bit disjointed in terms of the way the animation looked to the way the character sounded. Especially, I mean, it's really only with Bucky is like the big one because it's Sebastian
he was
Stan
the one who definitely kind of phoned it in.
Very wooden.
In terms of having like Tucci or Toby Jones or internationally renowned actors here for these small parts, I think the appeal of that is partly just like, look at how much of our cast we got. Like, look, and the fact that it maintains the continuity in some way. It keeps it's another way of keeping it part of the MCU, right?
For whatever reason, Bradley Whitford sort of took me out of it too, because I just could not hear Bradley with like Josh Lyman from West Wing talking. And I was like, this is just, I'm like, he's just going full at it.
Love you forever, Josh Lyman. You're my favorite.
But I mean, what really like elevated this to me was like, I was like, okay, this is good. And honestly, initially, it made me weirdly emotional. But not like a lot, but I was like, it's giving me good feels. I was like, this feels good. And then the back half was pretty standard. Like, okay, it's just a superhero movie. But then the end, then I was like, I want to see where this goes. Like, she comes through the portal, and you see, you got Sam Jackson's Nick Fury and frickin'
also
Jeremy Renner Hawkeye. I'm like, I want to know what happens next. Like,
I don't know how many folks on here are Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, but that was a big Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. tie-in. The tentacle monster is like, it's the biggest, it's one of, if not the biggest, like big bad out of all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yo, Star Wars fans, by the way, tentacle monsters is like an issue. It's this, I don't know, we've talked about it here on this.
About that before. What's up with tentacles?
Well, it's not just me, Levi. Everybody, tentacle monsters
with tentacles.
It really became a thing around the time of Rogue One when it was just like,
no one likes Borgullet, but
Borgullet will know the truth. Borgullet. Levi does it so well.
This is a huge thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It turns out in the course of that show that Hydra is an ancient organization, like an Illuminati type deal, that worships. It's technically an inhuman who was so dangerous that humanity banned. That the Kree, I think, actually banned him to another planet where he destroyed the entire civilization of that planet. And Hydra's entire mission, way before the Nazis, like since forever, has been to bring him back, bring back their all-powerful inhuman god, which they do in the course of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's this tentacle monster, and it turns out that's why Hydra's logo is an octopus, and he's this sort of, Legion type character almost, where like he can absorb the abilities of everybody else, and he's this incredibly dangerous inhuman. And so they sort of upgraded and made it into a giant massive squid, but it was absolutely like a huge tie-in to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. universe, which I was excited for. I was excited to see.
It's not just tentacle monsters, by the way. Now we have kind of an deep sea underwater giant monster problem in Star Wars now too. Jenny, in
There's
this
at least
episode,
4.
There's at
Four
least
too many.
And I think I heard you maybe
Quite a
mention this.
few.
Maybe it was in Hollow Knight Marauders. Were you in there the other day, yesterday,
Yeah.
Levi? And somebody said something pretty much exactly like what I said, which was like it was like a blend of all three of the
three,
large fish from Naboo in Phantom Menace.
I didn't say that, but then I named all 3.
Because it like when you couldn't really get a really good look at it at first, I was like, oh, it's a Colo clawfish. But then I was like, wait,
Is
no,
it a
that's
Sando Aqua monster? No. It's
Yeah.
an OPC killer? No, it's its own.
OPC killer.
Yeah, that's what it's called. That's what that fish is called. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh,
OPC
not the
killer.
goober fish is not
Yeah, the
called a
Gooba
goober
fish.
fish.
It's not called Gooba fish. No,
Gooba
it's not
fish.
called- It's not big Gooba fish. It's not
I know
called
you've
that.
seen Phantom Menace, Jenny.
Wow. I
and it-
unfortunately, yes, I have more than
Unfortunately.
once.
Unfortunately,
yeah. No,
I still
anyway,
like Phantom Menace. I still like the
Saw
prequel.
Phantom Menace too.
so yeah, one of the things I wanted to ask Jasmine, you haven't seen What If, right? But Levi, at the end, like you were saying, I want to know what happens next.
Yeah, like that made me the
But-
most excited. I was like, hell
But
yeah.
one of the things Jenny and I were
Yeah.
discussing was like, oh, this is what if these are going to be these like one-off like what if
I don't think
scenarios that
that's
are all.
anymore. I
are
don't
they
think
going
that's the
to-
case anymore.
Are they going to connect them? Are they going to have like
I
threads
was
that
gonna ask
actually?
you guys that too. Like if it's
So
Yeah,
it's its
we're-
own
so, I mean, I
non-canon
don't think we
thing,
know
but
yet, but it seems like they might, especially because instead of just making Jeffrey Wright the narrator, he has
He's
this
like
character.
he's got like a personality.
They ascribed a name to him. What was this? It was the Watcher,
The Watcher.
who almost
Yeah.
looked like a timekeeper type figure, or we were like, is that a
Well,
timekeeper
we've already seen the
type
Watcher
thing? Is it
technically
like
portrayed in the MCU canon in Guardians 2. It was Stanley's cameo. He was the Watcher, and the Watcher's
Oh,
always
you're
been
right.
like
Yeah.
this character in Marvel Comics. It's a lot like the Wills in Star Wars, where they're just like,
Mhm.
we can't do anything about it. We just watch. You know?
yeah, I feel like that moment in Guardians that you're talking about is almost like a fourth because it's Stan Lee, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
always
So
Stanley,
like,
it's almost like a fourth wall break, not in terms of like the
It's
character
close.
talking
It's
to the
very
camera.
close to a
Yeah.
fourth wall.
Yeah,
break,
but when you're making those commentaries that are like a ha ha,
it's a little
like,
bit
when-
meta. It's like in
Yeah.
the same neighborhood as a fourth wall break. There's something like self-conscious and
It was so easy to do that
There's a
with
little
Stan Lee.
wink in
Almost
there.
every one of Stan Lee's cameos is like that almost because it's like there's Stan Lee. He's you know who he is. Like hello audience.
either way,
It's a little bit of a fourth wall break. Yeah.
I didn't think going into What If that there would be any crossover. Or now you hear a lot of all the rumors in the trades. It's like they're going to cross over into live action. I'm like, how's that going to happen? Like, what's going on in the show? Like, it's it was pitched to me as it's What If. Like, I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it. But now after Loki and the multiverse, and like, this is clearly part
Yeah.
of the canon of it. And that ending, I'm like, well, I think all of them are going to have an ending, and there's got to be some sort of crossover. And then one of them, like, I could see there being a live action component in the final episode of the show, where one of the characters like busts in, and it's like, now we're in live action.
We have
It's like,
talked
whoa.
about this many times. The like cool world Roger Rabbit thing.
But we've talked about it the other way around
We've
though.
talked
like,
about it in context of like
cartoon
Miles
entering real.
Morales
Yeah.
coming in, possibly. We were talking about that because we knew that other Spideys were coming, and we're like, what if Miles Morales or like Spider-Ham or something came in? So this is something that
Like
like
the Spider Pig from the Simpsons movie.
yes, that character specifically and no others. But
Spider
we've talked
Pig,
about it enough
Spider Pig.
times that I'm sure like other people, including the people who make the show, are probably having similar thought processes. So I think that it's something we might see at some point. At the same time, I think they've been very clever because if I weren't doing this channel with you, Mike, I don't think I'd probably be watching What If. I just have a lot of trouble connecting with the animation, with the characters.
That's too bad.
It's unfortunate, I guess, but like I don't know, that's just me. It's just a personal thing.
You can
And-
leave the room. Well,
I know,
so long.
I know, but I mean, I don't know if I would care, and especially because I don't like things messing with my headcanon. I get so attached to these characters, and I think they've been very clever, which is that by putting this particular show, which messes with like alternative possibilities, if not alternative realities, by putting that in animation, they kind of soothe your headcanon by going, it's okay, we're not really messing with it. Like,
Mhm.
this is just a drawing or whatever.
Although
but it
people
allows
still
you
got
to
mad.
Explore.
Oh,
I'm
they
sure
still
people
got
did.
mad.
Oh, I'm sure people did. But I mean, it like it moves it down a step. It like makes it easier for you. It makes it more accessible. And at the same time, I feel like it's the same as with the Star Wars animation, which I also have not seen. I feel like I can watch. I know Jasmine's like dying over here, but I feel like I can watch the Mandalorian.
She read the Cliff's Notes.
I did. I read Cliff's Notes, and it was helpful. But I can watch the Mandalorian.
Hey, but I tell you what,
without
Jenny,
having seen 7 seasons.
I'll tell you what.
I
I got $100. I got $100 that Grogu's in this mountain behind me. So how about that?
Well, actually, we can talk about that. Lavelle was like, let's hear from Jasmine.
I was just gonna say, like, I think just to wrap up that train of thought, and then I'll shut up. I think that it's clever to put the headcanon messy stuff into cartoon format, but it's tied enough into the MCU by like the fact that the multiverse just opened up that there is still something to hold on to if you are watching and if you do crave that.
Like the people that don't care enough, like wouldn't necessarily watch it like you said you wouldn't if you weren't doing it with me.
Anything.
But they can get something out of it and feel like if they want to connect it. But
right,
the
there's something to hold on to if you want that connection, but you're not going to feel like you missed a big plot piece if you don't see it. So I think it's actually quite clever the way they did this.
Yeah. All right, well,
I think we're getting close to that point of no return where Star Wars animation is going to be vital to. I mean, once Ahsoka comes out, like the show, Ahsoka is just.
Oh, sorry. Actually, no. What were you saying?
Well, just Ahsoka, the show, is basically a sequel to Star Wars Rebels, and it's like it's going to be real hard to get as much out of that show as you can without having seen the show. It's a follow-up to.
In my mind, I'm. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, yeah. Even showing Ahsoka in The Mandalorian too, like a lot of people had to go back and watch the Clone Wars, right? And even Maul, a lot of people were confused in Solo. You're like, what's going on? You know, because they hadn't watched the Clone Wars. So
and they're like, why is he alive or whatever?
Yeah. So it definitely does help to supplement, you know, the overall story, the animated shows. But I was gonna say quickly to Jenny too, my mom is kind of similar to you too. Like she's not usually a fan of animation, but she does like the Clone Wars and she loved Invincible. That one she was hooked on. But otherwise,
that, didn't you? Interesting.
That was so crazy. Yeah.
Oh wait, your mom watched Invincible?
Yeah, it took a second for Mike to process that.
Yeah, my mom.
No, because it just seems so like, really? What?
It was very violent, right? Like very graphic and very.
My mom was the first person in our family to watch Game of Thrones. I was like, what is this show? Everyone's getting killed. Like, she's like, yeah, it's called Game of Thrones. And so I ended up getting hooked on it from her.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Was your mom disappointed in the end of Game of Thrones?
Yeah, nobody in my family liked it.
Okay, good.
Nobody anywhere did.
So I trust her opinion then. Hey, you know,
a few people out there.
Rape and incest. What's a little violence? Anyway, yeah, I loved Invincible, and no, it was violent, but it wasn't dominated by violence. It was dominated by like good character stuff with a lot of really good voice acting too. Yeah, cool. And that's another one where like the animation took on sort of like a new elevated form of like it maintained its cartoony roots in not necessarily cellular style, but like it had a lot of, you know, flat bold color, but then there would be backgrounds that were like almost photorealistic in nature that were like, you know, a lot more detailed than the characters themselves. So it was almost like a 2D character on top of a 3D environment, and it had like a nice blend to it that was made it feel new. So I like that. I like when the animation blends styles like that. And, you know, we were mentioning earlier, like, oh, the water looks so good in the Bad Batch, right?
Amazing.
And that's another artist right there. There's like some guy whose job title is like water dynamics artist or whatever. And, you know, that's all that guy does is just water.
That's probably like the one weird.
Or there's a guy that does just fire. You know?
It's like to be better than anybody at that one thing.
Well,
you know?
I've mentioned the particles in Bad Batch already this season multiple times. Once when Omega like grabs that handful of dirt on Cut Laquain's planet. Which planet was that?
Yeah. Saleucami.
Saleucami, yeah. And she like releases some of the dirt and it blows in the wind. Like that's definitely particle. Like all of that. That is actual dirt, like inside the computer that they've created with artificial computer matter, basically. And the dynamics of like the gravity and all of that are like actually real. So, and a lot of people would say they would expect the animation to be better because, you know, the technology has evolved over time. Like, of course it didn't look this good 10 years ago, but at the same time, like I said, there's an artist that still needs to make that happen. Yeah. It's not like Disney just threw money at it and it occurred. Like they paid an artist and then the artist still made art. Regardless of whether the technology is more advanced or not. So yeah, Jasmine, you were saying?
Oh yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying, and I know how you guys were talking earlier. I haven't seen the episode yet, so I guess I'll understand more when I start watching it. But you were saying there's a possibility you think it might cross over into live action. It's kind of random, but I don't know if you guys have watched The Blacklist, but they actually kind of did that for their last season because COVID
Oh,
shut
yeah,
down
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of
Oh,
filming. I don't think I
interesting.
saw that. Yeah, and the episode was like part animated and part live action. And it was actually so cool visually to watch it. So you'd have one scene in live action, the next one would be animated. But yeah, anyways, kind of just reminded me of that. It'd be visually cool.
Forgot that happened.
I think it's also
Yeah.
fascinating because this is such an uncertain moment where things are getting worse than they were a year ago. And there are still movies
remind
right now, like Free Guy, for instance, that are like theaters only. And I'm like, good luck with that. That's just going to lead to everyone pirating your movie when if you put it out online, people would have
Is that
happily
movie
paid
out
for
now?
it.
Is that
It's
movie
out in theaters
It's out,
only.
yeah.
And I'm like, when I say people, me. I am people.
me.
It me. I would happily pay
I am
whatever.
people.
I would be very happy to support the entertainment industry in a difficult time by paying for a streaming fee, but I'm not going in a movie theater and I will pirate the movie. And I feel like I'm the people, but I'm not the only people.
She's not with me, you two.
You know?
Shout out to James Spader.
But I actually think it's fascinating because this is going to be the idea of sort of hybrid models of how to create entertainment, whether that's a mix of digital and live action in movies, or whether even for theater, whether it's like digital theater versus in-person theater, and what the hybrid model looks like, and seeing what solutions people have come up with to mitigate unexpected interruptions in their shooting schedule or the pandemic itself or cast members. We talked, I think last week or a couple weeks back about the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus and how the lead actor Heath Ledger died partway through filming the movie, and they had to find like a way to complete the story. And just sort of seeing the way different people are hearing this like Blacklist thing, I think it's fascinating to think about like what the possibilities are. That's not a show where you would have expected to see animated content coming in, and now I kind of want to watch it and see how they made that work.
You got a lot to watch to get to that point, but
yeah, right.
I mean, it's a good show. You know, if you like James Spader, you'll enjoy your time.
I do. I love James Spader. Not gonna lie, I love that dude.
Liz, I don't know if I like Liz, but that's another conversation.
Yeah. Then there's the whole conversation we had last week about, or was that 2 weeks ago, about Scarlett Johansson and the, like changing the way actors are compensated because of the whole
there are a lot of adaptations that the industry has to make, and we've talked before about how it tends to be still at this point dominated by a lot of people who have been around for a very long time and are quite literally a dying breed. And I think especially because of sort of the catalyst of the pandemic, people are going to be pushed to find innovative
I don't think
solutions.
that's going well for her, by the way, because I just saw that Emma
No,
Stone
I know it's
signed
not.
a deal to be in the Cruella sequel today.
On the other hand, however, like Warner Brothers did the right thing and adapted it. When Warner Brothers sold that whole portfolio to streaming, they did adapt the actors' contracts, and there was the thing with The Rock and Emily Blunt. So I still think the ScarJo thing is important, regardless of how it goes for her specifically. And I suspect that on some level, her team knows that it's setting the precedent. She has enough money. She's not like suffering. But
her team made some real wacky claims about COVID, though, and they haven't aged well.
No,
and then you have like I know, but like
we had this whole conversation.
And,
like her team is. They have a great habit of like putting their feet in their mouths. They're terrible. But I think the fact that this is happening, it's setting the precedent, regardless of how her individual suit goes. It's something that production companies are going to know they can't casually get away with. After that, you know, and so it is going to lead to a shift. I hope it leads to some shifts in my union because, well, we got some issues. But I think that's an example of like COVID as a catalyst. It's going to lead to some rapid industry-wide shifts, and I hope, optimistically, aspirationally hope that it leads to a lot of innovation and to things that you wouldn't expect that it end up working out, like the Blacklist using animation or whatever. I think finding new models of how we present content that adapts to the world we live in is crucial, and it's cool. It's cool to watch.
I think it's unfortunate, Jenny, that you've said that you're like the animation is harder for you to get into, because I think like it's not just about using the animation, but also like leaning towards it because of like it's more reliable in that sense, and that like
it'd be more fantastical.
And I for one am all about like I bring on more animated shows. Give us more animated. I'm all Jazz. I agree. Yes, here she is, Queen. And actually, you were mentioning the live action and Ahsoka too, and I was thinking about how I can't remember your entire reaction, Jasmine, when you saw Ahsoka's Montrals and the way they executed it on Rosario, because I think a lot of people were a little bit sort of like, oh, that's not what I was expecting to see. And then we came to terms with the fact that it's like, this is Dave Filoni, like he made it work the way he had to make it work, and you can't
for the stunts and everything.
Yeah, but that was another thing where with the animation is these characters, it's so much easier. Well, not easy, but like things that are restrained in live action, whereas they're not in animation, and you have the ability to do so much more. So like the sky's the limit in animation. So just the fact that her headpiece was a little bit off was distracting enough for certain people for it to be like,
notice it.
Yeah.
There's a lot
because
more
they're so used to her design. Yeah. So I'm wondering how they're going to carry forward with that. Not only because, as far as I know, Levi, I don't know if you can confirm, the Ahsoka series is going to be slightly after Mandalorian, right? Or is it going to be simultaneous?
Well, I mean, every time we think we know, Dave is like, well, and it's like,
only there.
Because which episode is it in Clone Wars where he has the vision of like future Ahsoka, and she looks a lot closer to Shaak Ti? Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. And she has like the really long Montrals, like the one in the back is all thick like Shaak Ti's, and it goes down to like her butt.
I thought that's how she was gonna look in Rebels, actually.
Yeah. They also never really confirmed about how long the Togruta live, and you don't know how much older Shaak Ti is than Ahsoka.
Well, it's just like, it's annoying because
do you know who Shaak Ti is, Jenny?
I don't know who Shaak Ti is.
Okay.
Well, she died.
She's
like
the one that
4
looks
times,
like
so
Ahsoka, but she's much older, and she's in the prequels a couple times.
Cool.
And the Clone Wars.
You're cool.
Anyway.
I suspect that they have probably absorbed that criticism as well, and have probably worked on Rosario's outfit a little bit, and probably I'm sure that they have improved and adapted, and without doing anything too continuity breaking, we'll probably have a new and improved version of that headpiece.
Well,
yeah, that's what I would like. I'd like for them to have it be a little bit more attuned to the her look in the animated series.
In terms of continuity, your question though about when the show takes place. Initially, we thought in Mando, this takes place after the events in Rebels, and then Dave was like, well, you don't know, and it's so you don't even know. Most of the show could take place before she meets. Some of it could take place before she meets up with Sabine. We know that they're casting for Sabine now, but we don't know the exact time.
She would definitely have an outfit change then, because she had a different outfit at the end of Rebels than she did in The Mandalorian.
Was there a casting rumor around Sabine for Ahsoka? Yeah. Is it done? Did they actually?
They're down to a final 3.
Because I was actually hoping that Tia Sircar was going to be a candidate there, because
unfortunately no.
Oh, I love Tia Sircar. She's great.
She's the voice of Sabine in the Rebels animated show.
Okay.
Yeah, so
she's really fun too. She was great in The Good Place. She's really good.
I felt like Katie Sackhoff in particular really demonstrated the strength of if the actress who does the voice can be the live action character and it makes sense, do it. The fans will applaud you.
I just think that it's tough because
it is tough.
Sabine is clearly not the same race.
What do you mean? Sabine looks like she has kind of I thought she had kind of an Asian appearance to her when I first saw her. She could be.
I think Tia Sakar's skin is far too dark to portray the character. I think they'd have to lighten her skin, and it'd be a bit weird. It'd be like.
You think so?
Let's not have simplistic understandings of the way that race works. There are people who are very, very different colors who are siblings.
Well,
it actually does happen in biology, and a lot of the ideas we have that things like that don't make sense are not based on the world, not based on genetics. They're based on shows that refuse to accept that. And this is a galaxy far, far away. Anything is possible. I'm blow it wide open. Cast the actress who's awesome.
Levi, how much does it piss you off that Saw Gerrera's eyes are bright green in Clone Wars, but Forrest Whitaker has brown eyes? Forrest Whitaker has brown eyes. You can't explain that away he just aged.
I see where Levi's coming from a little bit too. Visually,
it looks very different.
But because it's, I don't know, that'd be tricky.
The actresses that are in the final 3, I don't know if you've seen them, but they look like Sabine looks.
If Sabine's skin was a little bit darker, nobody's gonna be like, "Why isn't she lighter skinned?" Like it's
Well,
gonna be like, "Hell yeah, it's Tia Sircar,
Well,
the
and
voice
the other
of."
thing about that is that some people are voice actors and that is their métier, like that is what they do, and it is not every live action
That's
actor.
true.
I mean, we just talked about Sebastian Stan clearly not really having the voice acting chops, although he's a fantastic actor and we love him. The two don't always cross. They're different disciplines
I guess so.
entirely. And so it's a relatively rare instance where you have the voice actor also being somebody with like a very impressive live action resume.
Like
And Tia
Katie
Sircar
Sackhoff.
does.
Mhm.
You know, she's actually somebody who's got at least
And that was a rare instance, and
medium-sized
she talks
profile.
about it in the behind the scenes where they made the character model to look like Katie Sackhoff just in case.
Oh,
They were like-
okay.
Well,
were
and
like-
that's the thing. We can't use Katie as an example because she
Yeah.
herself
Yeah.
is a property. She is like
Yeah,
a known quantity.
It was
in the
after
sci-fi
after
genre.
Battlestar
She's, like, a
Galactica,
legend.
and they said
Right.
it's in the behind the scenes. It's a funny thing where they were like, because at this point it was like a 10-year difference for when she was cast for Clone Wars and when she was in Mandalorian.
Right.
But Dave was like, one day maybe you'll be in live
Right.
action, and she was
Yeah.
like, wow, get out of here.
Because when
Whereas
you
this
have
is-
Katie Sackhoff, like you want to use her, she is beloved in the.
She's also one of those actresses
community,
that's capable
but-
of like doing her own stunts kind of stuff. Like
Right,
she's very
she's an
physically
action
capable
actor.
of.
She
Yeah.
has like the chops to do it, and when you have her, you're like, we don't want to waste the fact that we have
I don't know,
Katie
it-
Sackhoff. You know,
Tia Sircar is, if I'm not mistaken, of Indian descent. I know she's American.
Yeah, or Filipino or one of
But,
those. yeah.
But you know, Sabine is clearly like meant to look Japanese. And
You
it's
think
like,
so? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
a,
it's,
well,
like, it's like that would be a weird cast.
So you wanna see
technically
them-
both Asia, but like
that's,
Yeah, I know, but
that's
you
a
wanna see them
enormous continent.
cast
with
somebody
lots of
more like Japanese.
ethnicities running
well,
around.
no, it's just the fact that we see Sabine, and it'd be just look at the actresses they have as the final
Okay, yeah,
three.
I haven't
You know,
looked at
that's
them.
it's like,
And I know we
Yeah,
heard
Laura-
about
that makes sense.
La Rascas. I hope I'm saying this right. Yeah. Saw
Is-
Saw
is
never had
me-
anybody
is
for
it-
to place. Good point. Saw Gerrera definitely has had some prosthetics applied at some point. In
is
his
it
whole
Mina
life.
Masood or Mina Masood? Is that how you say his name?
yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he's the officially Ezra. Is that like a set in stone?
Yeah,
Like yeah, that's who they're.
essentially, yeah.
Okay, do you like that casting?
Yeah, I think so. I think I
Because that's
I,
one where it's like he's dark skinned. He's definitely like Indian. So
I mean, to me, he's. I'm pretty sure he's
he's American,
he's
but
like
I mean, like,
well, he's like Arabic of descent, and that's what Ezra.
but I mean, he's definitely
what
like
I
a
mean.
dark
Middle
skinned.
Eastern
It's just
And
they called
Ezra's
Ezra from day one
Levantine
has been
descent.
Space Aladdin, and they got the guy who played Aladdin.
Space
to be
Aladdin.
Space
That,
Aladdin.
oh my
It's
god,
like-
that's true.
Yeah,
It's
he
like-
literally
it's-
played Aladdin
yeah,
in the
it's-
live action Aladdin.
Okay, well that may
And
be,
it
but
was
they
a very
better.
big deal because there was some weird casting around that movie, and it was very important that he be
Yeah.
of Middle Eastern descent.
They better give him
Yeah.
bright blue contacts like they gave Rosario Dawson for Ahsoka, because Ezra's character blatantly has large blue eyes, and
They
it's
have
one of those
they
like,
can't, they can't
Very
do, they can't avoid
defining.
that.
yeah, you have to give him blue eyes. That is just so.
But
I
in
mean,
terms of,
It-
but
yeah,
and
like
then
someone that kind of visually looks like them.
Yeah.
Like I think that was the hard part with even Ashley is Ahsoka kind of
Yes.
had like you could say features that looked more like black or someone of color.
Ahsoka
Yes.
ain't white.
I'm like,
yeah,
Yeah, she's not white.
I've always thought she looked black. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
But, like,
She does. 'Cause she's not white. Like yeah.
we're going with what Jazz says,
it's
everybody.
hard. So
Yeah,
but
Jasmine's the
actually, then
expert
you
on
would
this
have had
one.
to like kind of put a lot more makeup on to make her look like she had those features. If it were Ashley,
Be
so I
weird.
mean, it's hard. You know, you kind of have to
Actually,
get visually.
Jasmine, if you don't mind me asking, is that because Clone Wars? Were you a fan of Clone Wars from the beginning, from like season 1, 2? Like you watched it back then?
I watched it. I think it aired in the fall.
So you
Probably a couple months in, yeah.
I don't want to like age you or anything, but you are essentially would be like the same age as Ahsoka, right? Or close to?
I am. Well, I'm 25 right now.
Okay, so
No.
yes, you would have been
I mean,
similar.
all
You were
I'm
a
saying is
teenager
that
back then.
Ahsoka is 17 in that photo. behind
Okay,
you.
so like what did her appearing to be like a young black girl have anything to do with you connecting with her back then, in that you were, oh, like here's like this cool young black girl character? That did you feel that way at all?
I did actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I kind
cool.
I kind of saw a lot of myself in her, as weird as it sounds. I was like,
No,
oh,
not
what
weird at all.
girl. Yeah, because it wasn't super common. You know, I didn't see a lot of people that necessarily looked like me in a show like Star Wars. But I just like that was kind of the first thing that caught my eye. But yeah, we were kind of I guess the same age at the time, like growing up. So I kind of felt that almost connection with her. And then obviously everything else was just awesome too. I thought she was really badass, and I liked how she was just kind of fighting alongside the guys, like no big deal, you know. She had great character development. So yeah, that was all just a plus for me. But yeah, but it definitely, I think that did have something to do with it. But I still like a lot of other female characters who aren't Black as well. I always like the strong female characters and strong characters in general, but that definitely did catch my eye about Ahsoka.
That's awesome.
This is exactly why representation is important. And we've seen some of these really gross conversations. Like there was the whole thing when John Boyega was cast in Star Wars and people were like, there are no Black people in space. And you're like, yo, there are no white people in space either. Like there's nobody in space. It's fake. And it was so
But also like it just doesn't even, none of that made sense. That was
like the dumbest conversation of all time. But at the same time, like sci-fi representation is an issue across the board. These conversations I'm not making an original point here, but sci-fi fantasy in general traditionally has like an extra big representation gap, and there are a lot of folks who are very, very into that genre for all the reasons that we are into that genre, or that series of genres, who have been crying out for representation for a long time, because you cling to the bad representation because it's the only thing that you cling to, the sort of shitty, like not good representation because it's the only one available. So having a character like Ahsoka, who clearly is a person of color, is like a huge deal for like little kids who watch that show and are like, she looks like me. She's the coolest character in the whole thing.
I too was a young Black girl in 2008.
I bet you were. I'm sure you were.
In the theater, I went.
People liked her too. Like even regardless of race, other people liked Ahsoka too. Like boys, you know, like non-Black people, like a lot of. And I think Ashley Eckstein really understood that too, and she really made it a part of her mission to make sure, like, because she launched her own brand, her universe, right? Yeah, to kind of to bring more female Star Wars apparel to the table, because there wasn't that much back then, and so she kind of used her platform as Ahsoka for good in that sense. So she really like channeled that. That's why I respect her so much. I actually met her before too, randomly, but like yeah, she was like super kind, and yeah, but all around, yeah, I definitely get what you're saying too, just about the representation. It definitely
yeah. And I love the thing you're saying, that other people who are not little Black girls also gravitated to that character, because it disproves this idea.
That's what I was saying.
Characters that aren't white are for a specialty audience, but the white characters are for everybody. That's never made sense, but it's something that a lot of people who hold the purse strings in Hollywood still firmly believe.
Well, let's also not forget though that Ahsoka, like, there may be some features about her that make you connect, but she also has blue eyes and orange skin.
Not
and
the
like
point though. The point is that
facial markings,
characters
like it's
who are diverse in any
Montrals.
number of ways that aren't just like the same characters.
I just mean anybody can connect with her physically as well as
sure, but that's I mean I feel like that's a side point. I think that the thing that Jasmine said that I'm really like clinging on to is that characters that are good characters, she is one example of the fact that characters that are good characters, that are interesting and strong and like badass characters, can be appealing to everybody. That like it doesn't have to be like a mayonnaise white dude to be universal. That well written, well performed characters can be universal based on just like how good the character is, and she's proving that point.
Circle it back around.
I agree.
That character, voiced by a white woman, played by a Black woman. There we go. But to keep going. Now you have Thrawn, who's voiced by a white guy, being played by that same white guy. So that's not like, I'm not talking about the representation thing, but there's another instance where the character is being played by the voice actor, and it's like, it's complicated. I think this all got started because you're talking about how do you want to see Sabine. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I just think it's a complicated situation, and unfortunately, I don't think Tia Sakar. She's also really short.
Okay, that's true.
It's the same thing with Ashley, where Ashley was just.
She is very short. She is a petite
like
person.
You just can't do it. I don't know.
I hope somehow they can still be a part of their characters, both Tia and Ashley, though. Going forward, somehow, even if they're not, because we do like owe it to them to, because like. We were first introduced to those characters in animated form, and like their voices really helped with their development and everything we know about those characters. So I hope going forward they can still be a part of it.
Well,
somehow.
Rosario Dawson had a conversation or two with Ashley Eckstein too.
I'm very sure that has happened.
Oh yeah, so they have respect for each other to that degree where they're not just gonna. Yeah, she wants to know about the character, what she's thinking, and all those things, because so much of the voice actor goes into the character itself. You know.
It really does.
Let's talk about Bad Batch.
Yeah,
We're 43
yeah.
minutes in.
Wait, so yeah, I
just
know we
looked
were
at the
kind
time
of
and I
trying
was
to
like,
include Jenny a little bit here,
man.
because once we
Yeah.
start talking Bad Batch, it's a little, it's not necessarily, we don't want to disinclude Jenny, but yes, we do want to talk Bad Batch before we run out of time. That was the main
That's
thing.
clickbait. I was
Levi,
like,
I mentioned right before we started, or was it right before we started? Yeah, your green screen background. I saw some people arguing in the comment section about, oh, that's the planet they were on. That's Daros. That's where.
I can't do it today.
That's where they picked up Gregor, and Hunter fell off the mountain, and and
No.
everyone's like, no, it's a totally different planet.
Different place.
And some people are saying it's this place, Wayland from
Legends. Yeah.
from
I saw
Legends.
that too.
Yeah.
So,
I saw it in your comment.
And this can all tie in the Dr. Pershing from Mandalorian stuff.
well, I
and-
definitely think it ties into that because that woman, that scientist, is wearing the exact same outfit.
Yeah.
And
If people were like, oh, if how old do we think Dr. Pershing is in Mandalorian?
oh, he's not
Like,
around. He's like,
I know, but he could be 40 in the Mandalorian, which would mean he'd be like
10.
15.
yeah.
15 or so. But so that could include that. That means he could be like a child character.
I think at best, I think this character that we just met is Pershing's mom.
yeah,
But
that kind of thing. In the same way that Boba was living with Jango on Kamino, like,
maybe
you might get, Pershing
Either
being
way,
like an
to-
apprentice cloner, like he's been learning about
to
cloning.
go into the
He
to
could
go
even learn from Nala Se. Like that could be an awesome connection.
to go into
have
the
no-
Wayland
Oh, maybe.
thing. So Wayland, so people think the mountains behind me are Mount Tantus, which is on Wayland in Legends, and that is like where the Emperor
I can't
kept
hear
his-
Wayland and not think about Wayland Corporation from Aliens.
or aliens, yeah.
It's just like
Wayland
Wayland
Yutani.
Yutani.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, are there gonna be xenomorphs there? Like, what's going on?
Maybe. We'll see.
I would
But
love to have
basically-
a xenomorph crossover.
I
in Star
can't
Wars.
wait till we get more alien content. I'm so ready for that. Everyone knows I
Nice.
love alien.
Basically. Yeah, oh yeah, with the show's coming out, did you see that it's going to be in the canon of the movies? I was very
I
excited.
did not see that, but I know that like
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, who is like 80 something, has said
He's
he wants to
involved.
make like 4 to 6 more movies in this sort of Prometheus timeline.
Verse,
And
yeah, he
I'm like,
wants
are
to-
you gonna live long enough? I'm here for it.
No.
But like, are you gonna be around Ridley? Like he's real old. So
He's going for it. Anyway,
I
Lavelle wants to
really
know how
have
many
enjoyed
tattoos you
those.
have, Jenny. How many tattoos do you have?
honestly, just the ones on my arms. 3.
Nah.
3. There are others that I want, but
If you've got to
tattoos are
count your
expensive.
tattoos, you don't have tattoos.
Yeah, they're
You can't-
expensive, y'all.
Damn.
They're
You
very
can't count.
expensive. I'm a poor actor.
What though?
Something Star Wars related?
Maybe.
Gotta be
Well,
Ahsoka
actually,
related.
I don't know. It has to be. It has to be something. I don't know. Something like time. Yeah, Star Wars is
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like I always thought my dad would get the Olympic rings because my dad was actually in the Olympics. Something
What?
No
like that.
way.
Wait, back up, circle back. Your dad was in the Olympics? Which
Yeah.
Olympics? What's his sport?
It
well,
was.
Boo was probably Canadian.
He was one of the runners, so it was like the 4x4 relay. I think he was in.
Oh, no
and
way.
400 in.
In like
sorry,
the
I was
90s?
wrong. No, it was either 80 or 84. One of them was boycotted. It was the
Yeah,
other
it's
one.
80.
Yeah.
Yeah. so
no,
the one that
No
wasn't
way.
boycotted,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Oh,
where
that's
the Olympics
cool.
were? Do you remember where?
Los Angeles, I think.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
LA Olympics. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
That was 80, right?
I
Was that
I think it was
1980?
and 84 was
Oh
Hold on,
my
80,
goodness.
84 was
Real quick.
Moscow, and we didn't go to that one. I know a
Yeah.
lot of. I had a lot of coaches in high school who were of that generation who were like just scorned athletes, still mad that they couldn't go to the Olympics.
Oh, is that from doping? Russian doping?
LA was
Getting-
84. I know that Moscow was 80 because I had like these weird bears that somebody brought me from.
My
Like
mom
these weird Olympic bears
so
that
random.
were brought to me before I was
Right.
born.
But we didn't
Um,
go.
But yeah, LA was 84.
Hi.
Hi, hey, mom.
Hi guys, I love you guys.
Awesome.
We hear you're a
I
big
just
Game of
wanted to-
Thrones fan.
I just wanted to
Jen
clear
knows all
things
the good
up.
shows.
So 80, my husband was in the Olympics, but we boycotted. That was the one in Russia.
Yeah.
And then 84, he was
Alright,
in.
that's the one.
That was the one in
See,
LA.
I always mess it up. Yeah.
400
That's so
4x4.
cool.
Yeah.
400
Wow.
4x4. So
Did
I
he
just wanted
place?
to get that. The only reason why I'm here is because I wanted
Don't
to
ask
get
that, Mike.
cleared up.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. Is so cool, man. That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Not only was my husband in it, his brother was in the 4x1 and they won the bronze for Canada too. So
It runs
the
in the
Olympic
family.
family.
You've got an accomplished fam. over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm fast because I chased after him. That's when we were
Amazing. He can't be that fast because you caught him.
I really love you, Jedi Jive, Mike. I love your show. I think
Awesome.
when the two of you guys get together, you and your sis,
And we
it's
watch our reactions together.
unbelievable.
Yay. Oh my God, that's awesome
Oh
to
my
hear.
God, we love
I'm
you,
upstairs
Mom.
watching it on my phone right now. So anyway, I'll let you guys get back. Take
That's
care. Stay
amazing.
safe.
Bye. Nice to meet
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Oh my God,
Oh my
that's your
God,
mom is
cameo
Mom's a
amazing.
legend. We love her.
Legendary.
Yeah, well,
indeed.
that was our cameo for the season.
That was so cool.
That's cool. You can tell you guys have a great relationship too. You can see you're
Oh yeah, no,
you're not like embarrassed. You're like, Mom, come on, I'm on stream.
Mom.
Shit.
no,
But
no.
your dad and your uncle, both Olympic athletes. Amazing.
Oh my goodness.
So cool.
I ran track for it too, but I never actually like continued it. You know, it wasn't meant for me. But yeah, they
That's amazing.
had that history. So
Wow, one of these days we're gonna have to
Very
like
cool.
actually get like a real appearance from your mom and like ask her opinion on some of this.
Something
Get
she's
her-
watching. And
Yeah, like we
enjoying.
want to. Yeah, like let's get your mom on
But
here.
does she like
sometime.
Ahsoka? That's the real.
Yeah.
my mom loves Ahsoka.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Good.
She loves Ahsoka. We all like Ahsoka.
Good.
So
Priorities.
did you have to like drag your mom into like liking the Clone Wars to like seeing it, or did she
Oh.
kind of? What's all this Clone Wars stuff? Let me see, honey.
That's not what she sounds like.
Yeah, no, I know.
You just met her.
No, because it was actually my dad who was the first person to watch the Clone Wars in our family. And he's the one who actually told me I would like it because he said that there's this girl that he thought I would like, and it was Ahsoka.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, and I think it was season 1, Defenders of Peace. That was the first episode I watched.
She's so like
Good
dislikable
episode.
at first.
Defenders of Peace. Defenders of Peace, good episode, guys. I believe
Yeah, it
that
was
comes
good. I
after
think I
Jedi
finished the
Crash
whole- Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We love
With the- with-
Jasmine's mom.
Oh yeah.
with the Lurman, for those uninitiated. That's the little
Yeah,
Lurman
and they didn't want the help from the
monkey people.
Jedi and stuff.
Yeah.
Shout
Nice.
out to Lavelle, super chat for mom.
Thank you, Lavelle.
George,
Thank you,
George,
Jasmine's
George
mom.
Takei is in that episode.
Oh,
Oh,
the
okay.
greatest.
He's
The
lot there. He
goat.
goes, the Trade Federation, and he has this
Oh,
janky
I know
voice.
that
It's so
guy.
funny.
Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
And it's George Takei. It's this big old Star Trek, Star Wars crossover.
You know what it actually just reminded me of is that the very first episode of Bad Batch this season, like the very first thing we see is that Clone Wars, the guy with the
Yeah.
voice that does
Tom Kane. Yeah.
Tom Kane, yeah, and he's narrating. That was the only time in this season that we got that. But that was a nice way of sort of like segueing from Clone Wars into Bad Batch.
We could talk about the parallels with the finale and the premiere. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's actually another thing that because the premiere was a 70-minute episode, right? It was literally 3 episodes in one, and a lot of people would agree that in the 2-part finale of Bad Batch, the first part was the better half. The second part was not necessarily as good. So that could have easily have been just one long episode, and people probably would have enjoyed the whole thing more in that format.
Yeah.
Just give us 1 hour-long episode as opposed to, or 1 45-minute episode.
I think they were mandated to split it up
Yeah.
by that was like a corporate thing, because even in the description it says part 1 and part
They're
2.
maximizing profits that way, 100%.
Like they didn't want to do that. It's clearly just one episode that was split up.
That's interesting. So why
it's-
wouldn't they break up episode 1 into and then have 19 episodes?
Because
Or,
to preserve, they fought to preserve some of their artistic vision. So they got something, but they had to split the finale.
because
I
I,
don't
feel
know
like
if you
the
guys
Marvel
remember-
format, the 1 hour episodes, or like Loki having 6 long episodes, or
Yeah.
WandaVision, they're all 40 minutes or so.
Well,
It
what's
works
interesting
really well.
is that this is something very, very having sort of any license whatsoever over the length of your thing or even the order of your show is very recent. Jasmine and Levi are both significantly younger than Mike and I, but I don't know if anybody else on here remembers that in the 90s, like shows would be aired
Speak
all
for
out
yourself.
of order. You're 3 years younger than I am. You're the same age, but like, so like, no, but shows
You'll
would be
never
aired.
guess how old.
You'll never know.
You guys will never.
But no, in the 90s, what I was going to say is that shows would be aired like whack out of order. Like the story wouldn't even make sense.
that happened in the
because
2000s, man. Rip
It happened
Firefly.
not that long ago, honestly. And it was corporate
Brutal.
decisions that for some reason, it was always like a terrible decision because fans are more attached to shows than producers have ever given them credit for. But it was always weird production level decisions that would happen. And if you look at like sort of any old cult classic show, there will always be guides online about how to watch it in order because the way it aired was so janky. And
Firefly is horrific. That's
the,
the worst one.
the advent of
So bad.
streaming has not only given some leeway. I mean, part of the reason for that is that things were being fit into television schedules where it absolutely has to be short enough to fit not only within the time frame, but to account for commercials and all of this. And so the fact that your episode doesn't actually have to be 42 minutes long, it can be like an hour and 6 minutes if you want, or it can be whatever. The advent of streaming has given the creators a lot more leeway to sort of realize their visions, but
Sorry,
that doesn't mean the producers
I saw
just
what
go
Angie
away.
put in the chat.
What did Angie say?
You get 9 on Jenny and
9
12.
on Jenny 12. Oh my, that's
Maybe
right.
in terms of our maturity.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's our absolute like maturity level.
Yeah, I thought that was
all right.
Yeah. Never mind. I'm sorry I laughed, Angie. I realized Angie's saying that's how much they're older than you. I thought you were saying that's how old Mike and Jenny are.
But it's like it's pretty cool to see some agency being returned to creators. It doesn't mean that the producers with dumb ideas have just gone out the window, but I think we should appreciate like how much license people actually have relative to like very, very recently in the television industry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
So you want to know about Wayland, huh?
Not so much. Well, I mean, it is another one of those bringing a little bit, filtering in a little bit of Legends back into Star Wars is never, nobody's going to complain about that. You're going to get a lot of people cheering that on. There have been a couple examples already, like Thrawn being the biggest one, right? Like they never, when Thrawn appeared in Rebels, it was like, oh wait, they're actually keeping this character. Thank God. Like it's not everything got thrown away. So you're going to get a lot of people who want to see that kind of thing.
I don't think we explained what it was to the people.
Well,
so basically,
Go
ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, all the nerds. Levi has the floor. Do it.
Okay. So basically, Mount Tantus, which is on the planet Wayland, nothing confirmed. Maybe we'll know on Monday when they release that like episode report. Maybe they'll give us a little tease. But basically, in Legends, it's where the Emperor had a bunch of cloning stuff, and like it was a storehouse for him that later on, after the Empire fell, Thrawn took over and used in the Heir to the Empire trilogy. And so, if they're doing that in canon with the whole Nala Se thing, and you have the Pershing cloners, like they could be sort of making the clone thing like adapting it to what we know for what happens in the sequels. Or at first I was like, I don't think that's what's happening here. But after seeing the whole Pershing thing, I think Grogu's in there. I think because we know from Ahsoka, that he gets out of the temple, then stuff goes dark for a while. What would that mean? You know, like where would be dark? And I think it's in this. I think it's in here. I think that's pretty dark. And then he gets out, or whatever. Then he's in with those mercenaries, and then Mando gets him because Ahsoka has that line.
Would teenage Dr. Pershing, or whatever his first name is, he's not a doctor yet, but would teenage Pershing be a good reason for why Pershing is defending Grogu in The Mandalorian?
Maybe.
And not letting him get experimented on and trying to save him?
It's one of those
because
things.
he has a history with him?
It's one of those things that the more I think about it, all you get as a live action viewer is enough. If you're just watching the live action shows, you're watching it, you don't watch it multiple times, you just watch it once. And what Ahsoka says in the context of that episode is you're following Din Djarin is all you need. He was in the Jedi Temple. He's a Jedi. Stuff went dark for a while. Now he's here, and he's serving this purpose for this character. It's the emotional arc of Din Djarin. He becomes a father. He's crying at the end. It's great. And if we get the backstory, of Grogu in this show, you don't have to watch it, but it's cool for us fans who do. And it's like, okay, this is where he is. This is why it's dark. This is what the Empire was trying to do. But you don't need that exposition in the main series.
Actually,
but
you know
can
what?
Do it in animation.
I agree, Levi, because Grogu as a character, now that they've set him up, it's potentially 900 to 1,000 years of future Grogu stories, right? Because we know that's how long his species lives. We could get Grogu for generations to come, and if they keep him alive, which they will, because he's a cash cow. But this would be their last opportunity, so to speak, to keep him Baby Yoda.
Young.
Yeah, and this would be an even more baby version of Grogu because it's 25 years prior. So that's how that they could milk that Baby Yoda cash cow a little bit longer before they start doing future Grogu, which is going to have to. One of the challenges I was thinking of: at what point are they going to have to start aging him up and changing the 3D character that is Grogu? Are they going to make him taller a little bit? Start to talk at some point?
I think he probably has a growth spurt in his 90s, and you just don't have to think about it.
But at that point, he won't be with Luke anymore. So the whole
no, it'll be exactly. I'm saying I don't think they have to worry about it. I think they can just arbitrarily make the species grow at like 75, and you
Yeah,
still
well,
have.
You can include
have-
Grogu in the Bad Batch season 2, but he's not going to have any lines. He's not going to have any.
No.
How are you going to have the character of Grogu other than him just being a green blob sitting in an egg in the corner, basically?
I think it'll probably be like a cameo, but I just think it'll probably be like.
Oh,
hey,
you do think it's
here's
going to
this.
be a cameo?
I don't think it'll be part of the main plot, but I think the Bad Batch will be adjacent to whatever's
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah, because what I said in my reaction to the episode was, the reason they kept Nala Se was because of her expertise in the cloning. And the Kaminoans are all gone now, as far as we know. Nala Se is the only one left.
No, they say that they take all the scientists.
Oh, okay.
They had that dialogue.
Oh, they
Okay.
Just, oh, I
Well,
thought-
nonetheless, like she's probably like the head scientist.
Yeah,
and
she's definitely the top.
Omega was her experiment. They referred to her lab in the 2 finale episodes as like Nala Se's secret lab. So Yzma's secret lab. Did you guys ever seen the Emperor's New
Emperor's
Groove?
New Groove, yeah.
Oh my god,
Oh,
I love that
a long
movie.
time
I love
That
that
was a
movie.
good movie.
I watched the
Eartha
movie
Kitt,
in the
Eartha
90s.
Kitt as Yzma. Yeah.
I
Anyway,
saw her
the
live
secret
on
lab in the
Broadway.
basement is the.
I saw Eartha Kitt live on Broadway in the Wild Party with Mandy Patinkin and Tony Collette. And
Oh
Eartha
my
Kitt was
goodness.
like 9,000 years old, and she was the coolest bitch alive. Like, bless her. Bless her. Big fan. All right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, now let's say Secret Lab. My reaction was like, okay, they're not. There's no new Clone War now. Like they really want to experiment on Force users. This is a Palpatine thing. This is Palpatine starting, not necessarily growing Snoke in a jar yet, but
He
when
wants
we
to clone
see
Force
that facility in Mandalorian season 2, I think it's episode.
Oh,
It's the one
yeah.
with Cara
It's the
Dune first
fourth.
shows up. The 4th episode, and then they run into, and she's like, "This isn't a military base. This is a lab." And you see like a disfigured, whatever in a jar. That's one of those things where like, oh, like maybe it's taken them a long time, and Palpatine took the better part of however many years, 30 years, to figure out how to mess with cloning Force users or duplicating Force users or influencing metachlorians scientifically. Or whatever.
That's
Any
what
of
they're
those
doing
things.
in Mando. Yeah, that's the M count. That's what Percy
Yeah,
said.
so this facility behind you, Levi, right there, is potentially like the origins of those scientific experiments, right? That they're gonna, if Grogu is in there, they're extracting his blood and trying to replicate it or trying to see if they can inject it into other non-Force users to create Force users, and
I just
they're gonna be failing though. That's the thing. We know that they're gonna
Yeah.
be failing. Right? Because in Mandalorian, which is 20 plus years later, the message that they read is specifically like it's still not working, right? Isn't it
Well, I
something
think
along those lines?
The way you have the batch connected to the whole cloning thing is through Omega and Nala Se, and the way that they are able to disrupt things. It's not like they don't just destroy the whole program, but because Omega has this like daughterly connection to Nala Se, I think they'll probably go either she's gonna try and escape or they'll try to rescue her, and that'll be a thing. But by removing Nala Se, that sets the Empire back, a while.
Yeah.
And so you're left with all the human cloners who don't know as well, and that's your person.
It also keeps it so that Omega and the Bad Batch have an inside guy, so to speak, in that like if we've seen Nala Se help them in the first episode, right, and to help them escape. So, and when we see Nala Se walking into the facility at the end of this finale, she does not look.
And now
happy
we
about
know
it.
that she specially made them and then like snuck them in to the main. Like they're not defects. Like they were intentionally made. That's sort of a revelation that hasn't really been talked about in a lot of the discussion. Is that the whole point of Clone Force 99 is like, oh, they have defects, and it's like, oh, they're defective, and it's like, oh, they're the fun like 18, but they wasn't defective. They were made on purpose, and they were bred to be that way intentionally, and then snuck in to the rest of the clones to be like, oops, look at what happened here. Let's take these guys. But like, so Nala Se's got some other stuff going on.
Yeah.
So sneaky, but I love it.
Brent is asked, do we think Nala Se will die by the end of Bad Batch? And if she does, it'll be in the trying to sacrifice herself for Omega because she's the closest thing she has to a mother kind of thing, probably. If Omega's been living with Nala Se her whole life, that's their family, right? She doesn't have a connection with Boba Fett other than her genetic connection. They don't know each other. Yeah. So we surmise that Boba Fett is going to have to show up eventually because of that genetic connection. But in terms of them knowing each other, they could be enemies at first. Or
I'm looking forward to that.
Always.
That meeting, actually.
We really thought that Boba Fett was going to show up in this because Book of Boba Fett's at the end of the year.
You've been talking about that, and we know his show's coming, but his show is coming
because
right
Fennec Shand was even a cameo this season, and she
My
actually
that's
she
my
came.
favorite Star Wars character right
But-
there.
We kind of just assumed, we know she's in Book of Boba Fett. She's right there sitting with him in that teaser that they got at the end of Mandalorian season 2. So,
So excited.
bringing her into the Bad Batch made even more sense for it to be like, oh, they're trying to connect these threads here,
And I think they will. It's just they're taking their time.
yeah, and
They're not
I
gonna
think
rush
a
it.
lot of people missed that they kind of were, they didn't know season 2 was coming, so all season we've been kind of assuming they need to cram these details in, and
But they
now
don't.
we know that they don't. Yeah, so that makes me care a lot less
And
about
honestly,
the filler
I
episodes.
think that the season was better for it as a whole. As you were talking about, yeah, this show starts during the Clone Wars. You know, it's the Batch fighting the droids with the Jedi, and then by the end here, Kamino's on fire, and Omega's like, "You were my brother too," and they leave, and everyone's crying. I'm
yeah.
like, this is horrific.
Yeah.
Like, what an arc of the show. Like, man,
Yeah.
it's tough. Like, it delivered something that people are really laying heavy into that filler thing, and I'm like, this was not filler. Like, if you
So-
don't like the Bad Batch, it's filler. If you don't care about the Batch at all, then yeah. Because that's what it's about. It's about
Every
these
episode
characters.
has purpose.
Yeah.
But I
Change.
think almost all of them, save for Infested, which I felt like an episode out of time. I feel like it should have been earlier in the season and not later. Like, it was weird. It was like the Ryloth stuff was so good, and then like anyway, that's the only one I can think of.
the
where it's
Moochie
fun to say.
episode, the rescuing the Rancor, like
But
some of that
that
stuff
was just like fun Star Wars.
Yeah.
Pulp. It's like it's Bib Fortuna, and it's like it's goofy Star Wars. Like that's all in the vein of Star Wars. You know, there's
There
like
were, the Martez sisters from Clone Wars
Oh,
season
that's
7
correct.
were in an episode of this, and they were even the people that contacted Rex initially.
Yeah, but that still had like thematic relevances. They were in this foundry where all of the droids were being melted down to be built into Star Destroyers. Like that's on Corellia. Like that, there is so much like thematic, like the scrap of the old war is being turned into the new war machine, and like none of it mattered at all because it was all part of Palpatine's plan. Like all of these droids were just shut off, and they're just being melted down and turned into the next thing to oppress people. It's like none of it mattered. And like that was resonant there, and like not only you had the Wrecker having the chip thing, like there was a lot of good stuff in that episode. I don't think that one was filler at all,
No.
but I don't know.
So
I just thought
here's a question
show
for
was
you, Bad Batch fans. You have talked a lot in previous weeks about how you thought that Omega was being set up for a live action debut, potentially in Book of Boba. Now that you know you have season 2 of Bad Batch coming, do you still think that Omega's likely to show up as a live action character, or is that just going to be saved for
no, not this
season
season.
2
at
Bad
least.
Batch?
Season 2 of Book of Boba.
Eventually.
So if there's a season 2 of Book of Boba, and if that
Yeah.
character gets enough hype over the course of
Doubly
Bad Batch
so.
season 2,
doubly so that we know that
Yeah.
she may even be slow. She may even have decelerated aging
Yeah.
to the point where she might be like perfect for Michelle Ang to play her in live action when
Yeah.
the time comes.
I think she's even potentially a potential for Mandalorian because she's no less Jango Fett's daughter than Boba is. So
Yeah.
she, by what we learned in Mandalorian season 2, has as much right to claim Mandalorian armor. That
the
is,
armor. That was
she
that
is a-
was like an amazing plot line.
she
in
may not
Mando.
be raised by Jango Fett. She may not identify as him as her father, but there is
She's a
some
Mandalorian.
argument.
Yeah.
There's an argument there that she is allowed to wear Mandalorian armor. So for all you know,
Yeah.
she could be carrying the
get it.
Darksaber at the end of Mandalorian season 3,
This is very interesting.
right?
Yeah.
So-
Potential.
And you know what? One thing that it goes to show that really connects with that in this finale episode. Forgive me, I'm like stuttering. This finale episode showed multiple instances of Omega selflessly putting her own life on the line to try to rescue other characters, including Crosshair, who was trying to kill them. So she's completely selfless and brave and courageous, and those are all aspects of like a potential future leader, somebody that's going to be like they were joking like Crosshair's like she's in charge, and then Tech was like, yeah, technically she's older than all of us. So that they were joking about it there, where it's like, oh, she's actually the oldest one despite being the only one that's physically a child. But she demonstrated her ability to put others before herself. So she's not only the oldest one and potentially like their leader right now, but she's potentially like somebody, like I said, maybe holding the Darksaber. That could be an extreme version of that, but she could potentially lead in the way that a real leader leads.
Yeah,
And
you
actually-
made good points about that in your video about how like she's shown a lot of leadership and kind of earned her spot on the team, and they do like respect her and are willing to follow her lead in her direction. as each episode passes. So it's nice that she started off as kind of tagging along to now actually having that significant spot on the team.
She kind of replaced Crosshair. It's kind of rough.
Yeah, I know. It does seem that way. I don't know.
Poor Echo, like, by the way, like, didn't get any action at the end here because it's like he doesn't.
A distant echo in this episode.
He's just a reg.
Just a guy.
Because he doesn't have any special connection other than just the fact that they invited him along, and he was like, "Well, I'm a freak. I got nothing else to lose."
Yeah, he's the plus one, you know.
Yeah.
You guys might have talked about this early on in the season, how you wonder if he will start to feel disconnected from the rest of the batch because of that.
I think he'll stay with Rex.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, yeah.
When they team up with Rex.
I don't know if you noticed, Jasmine, earlier in this finale episode when Rampart was like standing in the Star Destroyer or whatever, and a clone came up to him and was like, "All right, like all the cities are destroyed." When he said it, the clone like hesitated, and you can hear in his voice the remorse.
It was like painful for him to actually say that out loud.
Yeah, so I think all clones are going to be kind of joining the good guys in season 2, right?
I don't know about that.
There won't be very many because we know there's Gregor and Wolf and now Hauser, and we didn't get any closure on what happened to Hauser.
I'm sad we didn't see. Well, if anything, season 2.
I'll be upset if they're done with Hauser, if they kind of just were like, "Oh, we assumed you guys knew that they executed him or whatever."
They have to. He was so popular. Everyone
they have to.
But that was a profound moment, though, just kind of like understanding like the severity, the depth of what you've just done. You're basically contributing to your own demise.
Yeah.
Because what does that say? They just destroyed the facility where all like you and your brothers were created. So like, what does that say about their plans for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the structure straight.
It also
literally
we're also assuming that
out of Greek tragedy. It's like one of the 3 stages of tragedy. What makes the tragedy?
Oh. It's a tragedy. No,
it's tradition is that you bring about your own downfall and you only realize it too late.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
they come for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Jenny bringing in the Greek tragedy.
Well, no, I think it's important. It's not the only, we get taught that it's the only literary canon. Obviously, it isn't, but it is one that has influenced storytelling structures and certain in the West, including Star Wars. And it's a thing. It's this recurring theme of that it turns out, ironically, that you're the one responsible for your own downfall, but there's no way you could have predicted it. And it ties into things that we do talk about a lot, like questions of fate and, who holds the power, men versus gods, how much can you actually
Mike,
control
don't
in
you
your own
remember
life?
Lama Su 2 episodes ago when he was like, "It seems we enabled them to our own destruction." He was like,
but also
pretty on the nose.
We're assuming that clone talking to Rampart still has a chip, so it's also significant in that like even clones with chips are starting to like turn around and recognize the error of what's going on, which is a significant thing. The war is over. They have no purpose anymore. The Jedi are dead, as far as anyone's concerned. So they the whole finding a new purpose as a clone thing is there's a lot of that, and I'd like to see more of it, particularly like the Rex's squad that he could assemble potentially.
We'll see it next season.
We'll see that next season. I think.
Yeah.
But also, do you guys still think that Crosshair has his chip? Because
yes.
You do notice in episodes.
No.
Kind of,
Levi. Okay.
No.
I'm kind of stuck now because at first
they keep showing him holding his head.
Was like destroyed in the Braca incident, right? That's what I was thinking initially, and then I was reading some comments and some people were saying that they think he might have had it removed like a long time ago, even before the series. Some people think it was in episode 3, I believe, when he was in that surgical pod.
Yeah.
And then people are saying he still has it. So that's like also another mystery added into the storyline now that has to be answered.
It would just suck all of the meat and relevance of all of the dialogue out of the last 2 episodes. That's what made retroactively all of his actions, not all of his actions, but it made it feel like good, like the whole show was like, oh, there was more here than just, oh, the bad guy is bad because he has a thing in his head. He's bad because he is just bad. Like
that's just the way he thinks.
That's just the way he is. And when he says, like, I was rewatching the finale last night, like both parts was one, I hadn't done that yet. Like if he still has his chip in, that's nuts. Like there's no way if he had his chip in, it would have let him kill his entire team. There's like no way. Like that's
Levi, I know you've read Lost Stars. Jasmine, have you read any of the novels?
I have not read.
If you do read one, definitely read Lost Stars first, because it's not just a good Star Wars book, it's a good book in general.
It is.
But that book is fantastic in demonstrating the like showing an Empire perspective for certain characters, in that like those
Sienna
people
was
that are
just
loyal.
stuck in, man. She was
Yeah,
just
well,
stuck in.
Not necessarily though, because for a lot of those people in the Empire, the rebels were the bad guys. They're, it really is such a complex thing that, like, even when they're kids, the main characters of that novel, when they're little kids, they want to go to the Imperial Academy when they grow up and join the Empire. When Grand Moff Tarkin like visits their planet to like do recruiting or whatever when they're kids, and they like have a conversation with him, and like they make Grand Moff Tarkin seem like this, like, I aspire to be like him one day. Like it's very like, you can see how, depending on your perspective, it's not just, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, because for certain people, if they're raised in a certain scenario, the Empire could be the good guys to you, just depending on your viewpoint.
I think even though I have not watched The Bad Batch or The Clone Wars, I think there's also, I keep coming back to bioethics where like all of our shows are concerned, but there is something really fascinating about this idea that when there are people without their full free will, whether that's because they're machines, they've been programmed, they're clones, they're predetermined to be a certain way, whatever that is, or in the real world where you have people who are enslaved or subjugated in some way, when you liberate a population, or when a population is liberates itself, whatever the mechanism may be, you can't just assume that everyone who becomes liberated is going to agree with you. Yeah. when you allow people the full scope of their free will, that includes like some of them might come back and bite you in the ass, and that's part of free will. And I think this is actually
it's got to be
a very interesting question, especially when we think about things like cloning, which have real world relevance. Like, it's a sci-fi show, but it's not irrelevant. And I think that's something that's like fascinating to think about, is that what are the boundaries of free will, and what does it mean when you allow people to be fully free? I
would point out that he may be holding his head, but he never holds his head in like the chip place. Every time he does it, it's like a God,
it's like, I got a freaking headache.
Well, because I mean, he's been knocked out twice in that episode, for one.
But can a guy have a headache without everyone talking about it?
But also, I think he's just contemplating things, because he keeps saying these awful things, like, talking about the Empire and how he doesn't care that they're subjugating people. He's like, I'm gonna be a part of it. But then Omega says something profound about, and he's just like,
there's parallels to, like, if you think about the movie The Sound of Music and the way like Liesel's boyfriend joins the Nazis. Have you guys seen The Sound of Music?
Yes.
Such a weird.
Yeah, very.
Well, no. I'm just saying, like, in terms of the, like, a lot of people who joined the Nazi party a lot of young men, where it's like,
all I can think about is the producer.
It's not necessarily as much of a, if they're not having the moral conflict about it, they're having the, like,
Nazi.
Well, they feel like their future is better if they join this group, then I have a better shot at a better future or whatever. So they just kind of go along with it, because it seems like Crosshair kind of demonstrated that in the second to last episode, where he was like, this is the way I think. Like, I think this is better. Like, it's not about me having a chip. It's about me thinking that this is the way it should be.
And Mike, I think also, didn't one of the members of Crosshair's elite squad earlier on in the season say how the Empire has been better to him than the Republic? I can't remember what he said. Like,
oh my God, the elite squad, they were duds. They didn't do anything. Crosshair just took him out, and then that was that.
But the other thing too is also like the people. You made a good point in one of your earlier reaction videos, Mike, which was that I think it was Cut and Run, when Rampart was speaking through the hologram. People were cheering, right? And then like over time, we see in Rebels, like the tone definitely kind of changes, right? And I think like people, and I guess this goes for real life as well, you have to be very careful with like that you don't give into propaganda too much, because the Empire at the beginning was talking about peace and prosperity for all, and everything's going to be fine now that the Republic's done. People kind of fell for that and I guess supported them, and then later on they realized, oh shoot, like this is actually worse than the Republic. And sometimes at that point, then it becomes like harder to speak out. Then you need a whole ass rebellion to actually bring them down and blow up the Death Star. And like it just shows like the careful transition.
Has no one
Don't they
seen-
talk about this a little bit in the Ahsoka novel, by the way? I know you read that one, Jasmine, where it's
Yes.
like certain planets were like, oh, they were, the Empire established like a workforce there, but then eventually it becomes slavery. Eventually they're just stealing resources from these home worlds, and they're occupiers. They're not there to liberate you. They're there to enslave you.
Jenny,
And
I would've-
it takes like a long time to realize that. Yeah.
I would have expected at least you to have seen the producers.
Of course,
no
I've
one-
seen the producers.
Well,
yes,
no
both
one's
on
got my
stage
reference.
and on film.
Yeah, I was like, no one. I keep making producers references, and no one.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I need like, yeah.
All right.
I tried.
No,
No,
it's a good point overall. That's one thing I appreciate about the Bad Batch is that they're showing us how that happened. And actually, it was kind of the clones that contributed to their own downfall. Because in the moment, they thought they were doing the right thing, right? And that's how, I guess, in real life too, history repeats itself. Because every time it happens,
Yes, exactly. We never learn anything
fighting
from
for
history.
never learn anything because we always think that we're in the right at the time and say, yeah, this
Yeah.
is the right thing, and then later on we might regret it or not, may or may not regret it. But yeah, this show has just been brilliant in showing us that slow and careful transition. It definitely makes the original trilogy make a lot more sense now that we're seeing the origins of everything and how
I'll bring peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. Yeah.
Got
Your
you,
new
Levi, gotcha.
empire.
Yeah.
Um,
There are a lot
so
of.
this has been the end of season 1. What are you all expecting and hoping for and awaiting for season 2?
Ahsoka. No.
Ahsoka. Yeah.
Probably.
Ahsoka, done.
I mean, if they can pull the Martez
A lot
sisters,
more
for
than that.
fuck's sake, can we get some Ahsoka people? Come on.
I feel like it would have been so much more powerful if they showed her, because like we were even talking before, like the significance of showing like Martez sisters having Rex as a contact, and even Ahsoka's droid was there on the ship as well. I think it kind of
Mhm.
been nice to show her because it would have made all those moments make a lot more sense.
I think we'll
But
get her
aside
next
from
season.
her, like, what was
Yeah.
that?
We'll just get her next season,
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we get more big appearances next season. And I would also like to see the stakes raised a little bit more, because as much as I
Yes.
did enjoy the first season, there are many episodes where like I wasn't really on the edge of my seat. Like I knew everything would kind of work itself out eventually. I kind of feel like we could use maybe more episodes where they really kind of push the envelope and take some risks, like kill
Mhm.
some people off maybe.
Yeah,
and-
let's kill some people.
Let's
Come on.
kill some people.
Yeah.
Or even like what you said, Mike, the whole moment with Omega and AZ, like
Yeah.
that would have been very powerful if he
It
kind
was powerful, but then they kind of they
They took it
cheapened it,
back.
and yeah, they took it away from us.
Yeah, he should have died there. Like I like
For-
AZ, but that would have been like a
I would've thought- I
moment
think
for
he should have
Omega,
died, too.
100% should have just let him sink to the bottom there, because that I was feeling heavy in that moment.
It was a
And then
symbol
she
too.
gets-
He was like
yeah.
the last piece of Camino drifting to
Yes.
the bottom of the
Yeah,
sea.
and he was
Yes.
just floating back.
Yeah. But,
But,
hey,
I mean,
but
it
it
did
was
make-
also a mechanism to show
Yeah,
Omega's
to-
selflessness and her
And
desire
also
to.
a mechanism, a literal
Yeah.
mechanism to show a cool visual of Crosshair hitting it with the the line,
The
and pulling it
grappling
up.
hook or whatever
the
that
grappling
was.
hook. Like that
Yeah.
was cool.
They all
Yeah.
thought that he was up to no good. Like they all had their guns raised at him,
Yeah.
which was, I thought that was kind of cold. Actually, I mean, I guess they understand why they're a little skeptical, but they didn't even say, "Oh, good job, Crosshair. Thanks
Yeah.
for saving her." Like Omega was the only one that thanked him. And then
What's Crosshair's motivation for saving them in that moment? Why should he care?
He says to get even. He says it later. He says,
Oh, that's right.
Consider
Now
us
we're even because Yoda won. Yeah. That's true.
Something very interesting. Again, as someone who has not watched this show, but I'm
Even bad guys are
listening-
honorable.
I'm listening avidly. It's such a thing in sci-fi that there are always in like sci-fi in general, there are always all these mechanisms to bring characters back. Like everybody who's ever watched like any sci-fi TV show, there are characters. Phil Coulson's whole thing is that like dying is his superpower because he's literally been killed off in so many forms so many times, and so dying often seems to have very low stakes within the genre in general. And there's this like wide ground between dying has no stakes, everyone can be brought back, or like Game of Thrones being the opposite extreme where like everyone's gonna die. Like you cannot get
Yeah.
attached to anyone because they will all die. But there's this wide middle ground, and I don't feel like a lot of TV occupies as much space as it should in that way. I hate to say it, Joss Whedon fuck him, but like he's somebody who has traditionally been very good at this, kills off main characters and they're actually dead. This is something that like very few people do well. And when you think of some of the most like moments in television that have had the biggest impact, it's often like somebody that had this incredible story died and it actually had stakes, it actually had meaning. So within the sci-fi genre where like all kinds of magic trickery is so easy, it's very interesting to think about like what would the impact be if somebody that we're attached to and somebody that's had an arc actually fulfills their destiny and dies, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Or even if a character is killed off, what shows have a habit of doing also is kind of going back earlier in the timeline.
It's like a flashback or something.
Yeah, or like in Obi-Wan's case, you know, like giving Obi-Wan a series, which I'm obviously excited about, but it's like you kind of still feel like the character is alive.
It's a super weird example. It's a super weird example. Spoilers for, you know, like a 20-year-old show here, West Wing season 2. But I'm thinking about it because we were talking about Bradley Whitford. But in the end of season 2, like the secretary, who's just sort of like this character who's always there, Mrs. Dolores Landingham, just dies in a car accident, and it's like one of the most horrific emotional things I've ever seen on television. And like the whole episode though is giving you like flashbacks to her like younger, like, and it's just like it's intense, man. But it's like just something that comes out of nowhere, you know. She's just like the secretary character. She's like, oh, you know, you feel at home, like she just sits in the desk, but then she dies in a car crash off screen, and it's like, oh my god, it's horrific.
I think about, well, once again with Joss, I think about Buffy and the fact that there were, you know, it's literally a show about vampires. Like almost anybody can become undead and be brought back to life that way. And there was the scene several seasons in, it was like 5 seasons in, I think, but where they killed Buffy's mother, who was one of the, you know, consistent like main characters of the show. And I listened to like Marissa Tancarone and the Whedons talking about this, and they were like, it was very, very important to us that she not be killed by anything supernatural, that she just like die, and it was random, and it was like one of those things that happened that wasn't like some big storyline or plot point. Like in the real world, sometimes people die, and in the real world, we have an emotional reaction to that because there isn't like vampires in some mechanism, like we have to deal with actually losing people. And I just remember hearing this conversation about how it was really important to them to make that moment effective, that it be something realistic and relatable, and not just like, oh well, vampires, what you gonna do? And it really did. It had a huge
what
impact.
You gonna do when they come?
Big plot, right? Exactly.
Good one.
Tough.
Oh my goodness! Is this where the stream starts to fall apart? Yeah. This is
we
probably
always
a good
do. Eventually, we always just like go into, like,
we start singing "Bad Boys, Bad Boys."
Let's not.
All right.
ACAB.
All right. With that said, guys, let's wrap it up. Let's not get crazy.
Oh, that's a good Michael Bay movie, Bad Boys.
You know, I was actually one more thing I was thinking was about Fennec Shand. How like.
Yes, Fennec Shand. Let's talk about Fennec Shand all day.
I can always talk about Fennec Shand, but when we saw her earlier in the season, she was communicating with Nala Se, so we're finding out that Nala Se had hired her to retrieve Omega, right? But now Kamino doesn't even exist anymore. Taboka City's been blown up. Nala Se is captive. Is Fennec Shand even employed in that regard anymore? Like, if she's not getting paid to go find Omega, like, is there any even reason for her to even show up now? So, like, I almost feel like, no, Fennec Shand won't be in Bad Batch Season 2. She was a one-time appearance.
Well,
you think
are they going to have?
Is, like, because Nala Se can't rehire her. She's captive now.
I bet 3 is my guess.
If there's 3 seasons, it's possible. Maybe she won't be in the next one, but she might be in the 3rd one. But I think they do have to bring her back somehow to have her meet Boba. I think, like, I feel like it'd be...
Yeah.
Opportunity if they didn't, but maybe she somehow cross paths with them and rides with the Bad Batch for a while, because now.
Yeah, I wanted her to be an ally, you know.
Yeah.
We thought she was gonna be. I mean, she'd be a powerful ally for sure. She took on Cad Bane and outsmarted him in a way, and he's supposed to be the best. Cad Bane. Will we see him again? Yeah, I feel like the way I kind of see it now for season 1 to wrap things up for Bad Batch. The finality of season 1 so far is like they really laid the groundwork, didn't they? Now, so that like they can hit the ground running on multiple storylines. Like they don't need to establish characters for season 2. They don't need to worry too much about that type of thing. They can go right into, okay, here's like if Fennec Shand shows up in the first episode of season 2, we're not going to be like, what the hell? We'll be like, oh, okay, I was waiting for this. Like this.
Yeah.
So it's gonna. I think that is part of one of the strengths, the understated strengths of the season 1 is that they really did. It's a great setup season, if anything.
Well, and that goes to what Jasmine was saying about maybe there's less filler because now you already know.
Yeah,
who
well,
everybody
it
is,
seems
and you
like
can
it
get
could
to the meat.
Is the Roland Durand episode, is that filler, or is his family
might
gonna
show
be
up
really
again.
important? Yeah, they mentioned his mother being a big crime lord, right? And we all love crime lords in Star Wars, right? So,
We all love crime lords. Everyone knows that crime lords are universally lovable.
well, the whole sort of like mobster
I do love
environment
that.
of the Star Wars galaxy is there's definitely the whole organized crime, like the Hutts, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of different crime syndicates, specifically at this time in the galaxy. We know
Yeah.
that Darth Maul is
Well, because there's the power
doing
vacuum
the
at that time in the galaxy, so
Crimson
inevitably
Dawn,
you're gonna
or
have,
not
like,
Crimson-
crime lords.
Crimson Dawn, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's Darth Maul's group, which we learn more about in Solo a little bit. And there's also Black Sun, right? And there's the Pikes, and there's all these battling crime
Factions.
worlds. Yeah, I love
Stream
that.
is going off the rails.
We always go a little off the rails, but it's okay. You know, it's okay. So Bad Batch done for the season.
Yeah.
And What If is just getting started. We don't know really what's going to happen. We sort of touched on this, but we get the sense that they're going to have elements of self-contained stories, like each one potentially inhabits a different branch of this theoretical multiverse, but that potentially they might be tied together by this Watcher character, the legendary Jeffrey Wright. I don't know if everybody knows who that is. Jeffrey Wright is one of the loveliest actors in America. Probably he's a classically trained stage actor.
Westworld.
Probably best known to our audience from Westworld, where he
Casino
plays
Royale.
Bernard. He's an amazing character actor, and he's voicing the Watcher, who might be some sort of tie between
The Hunger Games.
these story. Yeah, he's in a lot of things. Angels in America. Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. He's all over the place, but he's a remarkable, like, just lovely actor, and I'm really excited even just to get his voice.
Yeah, speaking of, maybe as a final note here, Angie just talked about it. I've heard a lot of rumblings, including the live action thing, after that first episode of What If, but apparently there's like episodes of season 2 that they just shifted around to move away. Like, evidently there's a lot of What If content, and it's more important than we think it is. Like, I think they're already in.
Okay.
Well, because this is something they said, but there was like episodes that were announced that got shifted into the second season, and by shifting them, they sort of revealed their hand that there was going to be more.
Interesting.
I don't know.
So they really are kind of following a Star Wars model here, where like a lot of this animated content has run for multiple seasons and ties in some way. Like it's not indispensable, but it's helpful, and there are tie-ins to the rest of the universe.
Yeah.
That's
Also,
interesting.
what if for like Marvel's What If, like, we're hoping Visions is going to be similar for Star Wars in that sort of it's not canon, but we can kind of give you an alternate version of what might have happened.
I think I might even watch that with you. Just from the trailer, the art looks so beautiful, like just like a visual feast.
Levi, when's Visions dropping? Is it
September 22nd?
Okay, that's pretty close. It's a few weeks away.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Wednesday.
Wednesday. Oh, okay.
Everything's dropping on Wednesdays now.
Wednesdays,
it's like seven episodes. Levi, is it 7? I
9.
believe.
But it's all dropping at once, though.
It's all dropping at once.
Interesting.
They're gonna vary in length too, from like very short to like somewhat long.
Yeah, there's one that's like a double episode. I think.
I bet
that
the
was
whole
announced,
thing. I bet the whole thing is probably like 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
I bet all of it combined.
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch all of them in one sitting, and do
Maybe
reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right,
looks like
guys.
It's gonna be gorgeous.
We could talk forever. Love you guys. Love talking to you guys. Go over to Ahsoka Tano fans page on YouTube, also on Instagram, and you want any other social media?
Twitter.
Okay. Well, anyway, go check out Ahsoka Tano fan if you haven't yet. Jasmine, great page, great content. We love having you here, and we love seeing your mom, dude. That was dope.
Mom
That was
the
amazing.
The star of the show today. We love
Yeah.
Mom.
If Mom is listening, we love you. Please come back sometime.
Again,
Yes,
please.
definitely.
That's a nice surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are
I didn't
awesome.
know if she was gonna come down. I just heard footsteps. I'm like, oh.
You're like, oh.
Is she?
She's like Jive. She called me Jive.
Yeah, it
dude.
seemed
That's
like
amazing.
she was waiting like right there to hop on. It was very funny.
She's
Yo,
like,
what's
I'm
up,
having
Jazz?
my moment. I've been waiting. But honestly, like if we do something that your mom is a huge fan of, we should have her as like a guest on the show one time. And just hear, like, her
Absolutely.
Yeah,
reactions.
definitely. I'll let her know because she was in one of my WandaVision episodes.
I love it.
Yes, I saw that. I knew your
Yeah.
mom from that. So it was
Yeah.
great seeing her. And yeah, Levi, as always, thanks for being here, buddy.
On the nerds.
Representing
Thanks,
all new nerds. You guys, they're like basically 150 subs away from that 1,000 sub mark. So let's get them there.
147.
Go subscribe.
It'll happen in probably a couple days with one video. It's what always happens. You'll get
Yeah,
like
we
one
need
really-
that juicy content.
Yeah, you'll get that one.
Like that one push. Yeah.
Whether it's gonna be Book of Boba Fett, like one crazy episode or something.
I'm so excited.
Oh, I can
for that.
almost
I'm
guarantee you
really
will probably
excited.
gain. You gain
Yeah.
so much from a live action piece of Star Wars content dropping like that. The traffic is way up.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah.
the Bad Batch alone, you triple, like for us anyway, as a Star Wars channel, you like quadruple or triple your viewership.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get almost
Yeah.
1,000 views on those videos just by nature of being about Star Wars, like Bad
Yeah.
Batch, like something relevant that people want to look up. So
Yeah.
yeah, for something intense
sure.
like that,
Or you could always just go join a Star Wars theory stream again. That would be another.
yeah, good times.
You Anyway, with that said, guys, peace. We love you. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. Ahsoka Tano fan, all new nerds. Jenny, thank you for being here. Jedi Jive signing out.
Bye.
Peace,
Bad
everybody.
boys, bad boys.
Yes.
Sing us out.
Gonna do
Levi.
when they come for you.
And now you can make a baby
A baby
dinosaur.
dinosaur.
Baby dinosaur, dino DNA.